Hey guys, T2 out here. Welcome back to the Time Preparedness channel. I'm out here with the guys from the Duff and Dale show as well as Survivalist Prepper. We're just going to be going over a couple questions, kind of a play on the last video that Survivalist Prepper did, and we'll go from there, ask a couple questions, get a couple answers, and yeah, just see where this goes. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, just kind of how long you guys have been prepping and why y'all have made YouTube channels, I guess start from there.
You want to go first, Brian? Or do you want me to?
Oh man, you go ahead.
I started Survivalist Prepper over 10 years ago. And I started the website first. And then I started doing some videos. I have the bug out location. It used to be called the Survivalist Prepper Academy, which is just a bunch of videos and courses on basic preparedness and stuff like that. So I started doing some videos, and I needed a place to upload those. So I started out on YouTube. And then after that, I just figured, this is kind of fun. Why not just keep going? And have grown since then. And then kind of about 2 years ago, kind of took a little dip, kind of got a little bored of, some of I've been doing it for so long that you run out of, or you talk about the same preparedness topic for the 14th time, you kind of get bored of it. So kind of took a break from it. And then Brian hit me up and he was like, hey man, let's just do a show where we get on and just talk. And, talk about the next level of preparedness, not necessarily the advanced stuff. So we decided to do Duff and Dale, and we've been doing that for, not quite a year yet, but it's a lot more fun. And, we're doing some stuff on Survivalist Prepper as well. So kind of getting my mojo back into prepping, but that's me. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. So I actually am a lifelong prepper. I was prepping back in the 80s. And always been into it. And then I was working overseas. I didn't know that preppers existed. I knew was survivalists and all that kind of stuff. And no one really talked about it much. Well, I was overseas and a buddy of mine said, hey, you should listen to podcasts. I had no idea what a podcast was or anything like that. And so I started looking what I want to listen to. And I came across Dale's show and started listening to Dale. I think that was in Baghdad, probably, 2014, somewhere around there, 2015, started listening to Dale. And I was like, wow, there's these prepper things out here, and realized that that's what survivalists had, what they were calling them now. And so I got into it, started reading all the books. When I came home from overseas, decided, man, I really kind of enjoy this, and I'm enjoying the fiction. So started a Mind for Survival, a website, and started a podcast, and kind of the same route that Dale went about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I was just like, oh man, it's a lot of work, as doing your channel. It's a lot of work to do that stuff. Right. So I kind of took a break too, but Dale and I would get on the phone every once in a while, and we'd have these just BS for a while about what was going on and preparedness and stuff. And so I was like, why don't we just do that and just record it and put it up on YouTube? And so that's where the Duff and Dale show came from.
Yep. I remember when Brian started his podcast, when I first listened to it, I was like, oh man, I got to step up my game. He's got all this great audio and, sounds all professional. And, here I am just babbling and rambling. And that's pretty interesting though.
I think my first introduction to Survivalist Prepper was a blackout kit or a lights out kit. Mm-hmm. And that video has probably been up for 5-6 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just like y'all, you're just like Brian. I didn't know that's what it was called nowadays. I didn't know that's what it, survivalist was now prepper. I went into it from a camping aspect, and I was like, oh man. And then once you get your terms right, it's easier to search for things, right? Bug out bag. Well, that's easy to search for. I was looking up like camping bags and stuff like that. Well, you don't find things for that. And then, finding bug out bags, then you find preppers, and then you find lights out kits, and then you find, and it's the rabbit hole that goes on forever. What's changed for the YouTube style over the last 10 years?
What? I'll tell you what you can and can't say is the big one.
Right.
It's that political correctness and all that stuff. But it used to be, I guess, more kind of Wild West, where I've never been real controversial. Now we at Duff and Dale, we kind of straddle that line a little bit. But at Survivalist Prepper, I've never been really controversial. It's about the learning and stuff. So, right. It wasn't really, hasn't ever been a real big issue for me. But back then I guess there wasn't this overload of information. So, back then it was, doing some of this stuff. There wasn't, the opinions and all the different people and all that stuff. So it was a little bit different back then. Where these days it's almost become a mainstream type thing. There are, 50 or 100, prepping channels. A lot of them that are pretty good too. But there's just a lot more out there these days.
So in your last video, you talked about reconfiguring. Every so often, you got to rethink about, where does the next 5 years hold? Where does the next 2 years hold? 1 year hold? And how can I change my prepping aspect to match that? So 10 years ago, 2 years ago on the Duff and Dale show, has that changed? I know you went over a little bit in your video, but has that changed, and has your YouTube channel kind of matched that, or is it still just prep to prep?
Yeah, I think with all of us, we go through these stages where, when you first start out with preparedness, and I was kind of like you guys, where I had done this stuff before that, and then I get into preparedness and you find out, hey, all the stuff they're talking about is the stuff I already do. So, but you kind of grow as a prepper. So as you do that, your priorities, your skills change, all of that stuff changes. So you're able to do different things, or you get one thing figured out and you're able to move that, up to the next level and all that. But along with that, I think is also paying attention to everything that's going on around you. We talked about this last night on Duff and Dale, and with everything we've actually talked about this a few times. With everything going on right now, keep your head on a swivel, man. I mean, who knows? Who knows what could happen?
And Brian, you said like 5 years ago you were in Afghanistan, all right?
No, it was 2015 was my last year in Iraq. I spent about a decade running around overseas.
So how do you be a prepper in a different country?
Yeah, do your best, man. There's your situation will always dictate what you can do, right? So there's that risk, doing your personal risk assessment. Hey, is going overseas is this something I really want to do? When I go overseas, I don't have all my preps. But I can tell you, like when I was in Baghdad, when Obama was talking about drawing his red line in the sand, we had intel that they were going to, if we bombed Syria, they were going to hit us with chemical weapons. I was doing the best I could in my room. I had duct tape to seal the doors off. I had water. I had a pro mask. I had everything I could do to possibly prepare for that situation. I think that's kind of what we all have. And that's, when we first become preppers, when we're new preppers, we a lot of people get overwhelmed because they see so much stuff that, I need to have this and I need to prepare for that. And it becomes overwhelming. I think if we all step back and say, hey, as long as I can prepare as much as I can possibly prepare for right now, and that's all I can do, there's something right. Have to go because you just haven't had the time or the ability to do it. I think that same lessons applies whether it's overseas or here at home.
I wanted to team up with Brian when he approached me with that, because he approaches a lot of this mental stuff with preparedness. And I think that's really important. And you're talking about how your growth as a prepper, I think once you get the basics figured out, you do have to look at that mental stuff, because staying out of situations is going to do it. It's going to make things a whole lot easier than having to, making sure you have the right supplies if you're in a situation. So that mental side of prepping is super important, and it's something that you don't read about a whole lot online, because people are writing about bug out bags and stuff like that. But which is good too. But that mental side, it's something that staying out of a fight, staying out of a situation, making your situation better instead of worse, are all super important.
There's a saying, and maybe y'all have heard it. A gun will get you out of a situation a knife would never put you into. And it's situational awareness. Avoid the fight if you can. But just like you said, there's always the prepper fiction books and the bug out bag post and all these videos about, oh, this is my armament and my arms and ammunition ready to go into a battle. I'm going to walk around if I can. I'm going to avoid the situation if I can. I mean, there's times where you've got to fight. I mean, don't get me wrong, but avoiding, and just if something were to happen, some sort of chaotic event, go be you, go with your people and hide out over here, or, build up your little bug out location instead of taking the fight to someone else. Unless it's, unless it's warned.
Yeah, it's not going to turn out like it does in the movies.
No.
Yeah, no, and Dale mentioned it, and you mentioned situational awareness and stuff. It's also having that awareness to know that, okay, like if you can't get around the situation, what can I do to increase my chances of a better outcome, of struggling less, or all that as I go into the situation? I think, especially nowadays with all the possibilities that are out there. If we look at the financial situation going on, we have, politics in Washington, D.C. They're putting permanent fencing up around the Capitol and thinking they're under assault. We have riots starting up again. It's like, just like overseas when we had fighting season, it's riot season starting up again. There is so much stuff that any time, I think, before 2020 would have been enough to get people concerned. It's all happening at the same time, and it's all sort of kind of interplaying off one another. They're each sort of magnifying the effect. So right now, understanding that whole bug out bag and all that kind of stuff is important, what you need to have in it and all that. But really what's important right now is being aware of what's going on around you. And Dale and I used to say politics, we're not going to talk politics, because they weren't as important. Well, now they're really important because of the words that they're using, the rhetoric they're getting going on both sides. So it's important to kind of use your awareness to determine what your situation is going to look like tomorrow.
With politics, it's not necessarily talking crap, as much as I love to talk crap about Joe Biden or AOC or anything like that, but paying attention to the policies, the decisions that they're making, the things that will affect the way your ability to prepare, basically. That's because, like we talked about last night, most of these things that are coming up are basically caused by these yahoos. So we absolutely have to pay attention to that. We can figure out the natural disasters and all of that stuff, but the big stuff is usually caused by these yahoos. So we got to pay attention to what these dudes are doing. Not necessarily get all ramped up about it, and even though we do sometimes, but and have it affect your life. But pay attention to what's going on. That way, you're not gonna you don't get blindsided by something.
Where do you see the next 5 years? Is it time to build a bunker in the backyard, or is it time to garden, or are we stocking up on ammo? Like, what's the projection for the next 5 years?
I'll let Brian answer that first. I know he wants to build a damn bunker.
I'm all about the bunker, man. I figure if you got the ability, the wherewithal, or the money, whatever it takes, talk about a time you want a social distance. All right, I'm going to go sit in my bunker. You all social distance the hell outside of my bunker. Right. So I'm all about the bunker, but what I'm about is people need to be as prepared as they possibly can without going into debt, without causing harm elsewhere in their life. So that way, if something does happen, they're that much more prepared for it, whether it's going out for somebody who hasn't even started and getting, 5 cans of or 20 cans of canned meat, 20 cans of vegetables, 20 cans of fruit, something along those lines, and some bags of rice and put them away. You're that much farther down the road in your preparedness. You're that much closer to struggling less when something happens. We talk about the economies possibly tanking, more and more talk about that. I mean, if you listen to Janet Yellen and you listen to the people that are running the government, they're saying everything's hunky-dory. If you listen to a lot of other people, they're saying we have a really bad times possibly coming ahead. Well, those bad times may mean, interruption to the food chain and supplies such as that. So being ahead of the game so you can at minimum supplement your food so you're not starving with everybody else, that's a good thing. Looking at the level of civil unrest that's happening, if you're in an urban center, preparing for that, because that's obviously not going away. It's like, it's completely acceptable now that if people have a problem, they can go out and burn the city down as long, and pretty much and no one's going to try to stop them in a lot of the cities out there. I think that's why if you get on Zillow, you get on realtor.com and all that, you look out into places that are more rural, prices are going through the roof.
Yeah.
People are moving into small towns all over America because they're getting the hell out of these cities. So I think positioning yourself right now to, one, be able to stretch your food supply, be able to live without having to go in debt. And then 2, being able to figure out how, wherever you're going to live or wherever you might want to go to, how you can basically fortify where you're at. We used to have the whole mindset of everybody's going to bug out. Everybody's going to bug out. Well, we had cities kind of burning this last summer. How many people bugged out? Nobody. I did. I had a place to go. And it was a complete train wreck as I was doing it too. But most people are going to be live in their house. They have the fantasy of bugging out to the woods. We know when it's, oh, do I want to go live in the woods or do I want to stay in a house with a roof over my head? They're going to stay. So what can you do to make your home more secure? What can you do to increase the level of supplies in your home? Thinking about it in those aspects, I think, are really important right now.
Yeah, and I would add to that, just live locally, basically. Try to do everything you can to self-sustain for 3 months, 6 months, because if it's, pandemic 2.0, if it's that civil unrest where you got to stay away from people and stores are burning and all that crap, the gardening, all of that stuff, do what you can to make sure you're not so dependent on all of that stuff. And I'd even say, start cutting the bills and stuff like that. Stop or try to spend less money, because who knows what's going to go on with this economy and everything. So,
all right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video with Duff and Dale and the Survivalist Prepper. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Subscribe to these guys' channel as well. And we hope you enjoyed this video.
Yep.
You two out.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.